You are watching Tea Time Tips. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Amy Michielle Freeman with Edina Realty, and Steve Mohabir with Edina Realty Mortgage
Correct.
is hanging out too. So, Steve, okay, we've had some great discussion over the last couple weeks about interest rates.
Yes.
And I'm not quite ready to let it go.
Perfect.
Yep. So you brought up an interesting point that the interest rates stay with the house. So if a buyer locks into a rate but decides not to move forward with the deal, let's say something happens in the inspection, they decide to walk away, like that interest rate's gone. But play with me if you will.
I will.
Let's say they find the perfect house.
Yep.
We get through the inspection period.
Sure.
And they lock that rate, right?
Love it.
And let's say 48 hours later, it's a good day with interest rates and they fall.
You plummet.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is there a solution? Can they get out of the rate that they locked? What are next steps?
Yeah, so every investor is going to be a little bit different in this case. But there is a way to unlock your rate and grab the better interest rate. Mm-hmm. Typically, it's going to cost you a little bit of money to do. But I always say it's depending on the loan size. If you can drop a 0.25% or so, it's probably worth it in the long run, depending on longevity in the house.
Mm-hmm. And so that 0.25% is the benchmark for you from your perspective?
I think an eighth doesn't matter so much. I mean, if it's a $1 million loan, yes, it matters. Mm-hmm. It always matters. Cheapest money is always the best money, right? Mm-hmm. But a quarter really shows a significant drop in payments. And sometimes you can grab, instead of maybe a quarter lower rate, you can go an eighth and it doesn't cost you anything. Mm. So there's always some benefits, but we look at the numbers, make sure it makes sense to do, and move forward if it does.
You brought up a really great point in our sales meeting this past week where you were talking about sort of what impacts those interest rates dropping versus staying steady or rising. Can you talk about kind of the external factors that go into dictating that?
Dictating rates?
Dictating rates, yeah. So you talked about a couple weeks ago, the rates dropped because of the bombing in Saudi Arabia of the oil field, and just sort of how the global economy sort of impacts us here at home.
Absolutely. So it used to be, the Fed funds rate would kind of dictate everything. But we've gone to more of a global economy, and things overseas are really pressuring interest rates from a global perspective. European Union stuff, trade war with China is a big one right now. Oil prices and oil uncertainty in the Middle East always seems to rear its head in. But there's a lot of factors that go into where rates are. And it's hard to predict. Otherwise, I say I'd be a bond trader. And we try to do our best to guide, but 2 hours from now, they could be very different than they are right now. So it's hard to predict.
So tell me this, because I'm very vocal in the fact that this is your wheelhouse and not mine. So let's say with the trade war in China going on right now, will that make interest rates rise or lower?
Well, the trend has been, and there's always uncertainty, but the trend has been any global situation that's poor. So trade war with China technically is a poor piece. The rates have gone down. If the trade war stops, the consensus would be that rates go up.
All right, because they want people to keep spending money here. Is that
spend money in Minnesota in particular on houses? But
using me.
Of course. But yeah, consumer spending is 70% of our economy, and we saw with the recession that housing's probably about 50% of our economy, if not more.
Right.
And housing related things like construction and lumber and service industry stuff, and all the way through Home Depot.
You're like a super smart guy.
Why, thank you.
You know your stuff.
I try.
That's one reason I like working with them. So thank you so much for tuning in today. You can find Steve on
citylakesloans.com, CITYLAKESLOANS.com.
And that links you to all your social media, your email. They can
Website,
Website,
everything's there. Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. You've been watching Tea Time Tips with AMF and Steve.